Welcome to the Texas High School Football Coaches Show on Lone Star Gridiron. I'm Chris Daly, and it's my belief that the men that make up the fraternity of Texas high school football coaches are much more than a bunch of thick-necked guys with whistles. They do so much more than teach technique and the X's and O's of football. They take young boys and change them into young men of character. They get kids to believe in themselves, to trust others, and to put others ahead of themselves. Texas high school football coaches are unique in how they impact the lives of these athletes as well as the generations those kids touch. In this show, I sit down with a different Texas high school football coach each time and learn about them. Not their record, not their on-field accomplishments, but who they are and what they believe and what it means to be part of the greatest sport in the greatest state. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Lone Star Gridiron Texas High School Football Coaches Show, Season 4, Episode 15. And today my guest is a coach that is no stranger to winning, but as you'll find out, Brent West from the Cisco Lobos is about a lot more than just winning football games. I'll introduce you to him right after this. Hey, I want to give a big thank you to this season's title sponsor, Mecca Sportswear, where they are all about celebrating achievement. They're honored that so many high schools, colleges, and universities have chosen Mecca's products to represent their institutions. Mecca supplies you with the very best in custom letter jackets, chenille letters, patches, blankets, banners, pins, certificates, and much more to motivate and celebrate achievement in athletics, academics, or the arts. They create high-quality custom awards that will fit your budget. To see why so many great schools around Texas choose Mecca Sportswear, call Sherry Armstrong or Billy Armstrong at 210-651-6592. Mecca Sportswear, the premier suppliers of letter jackets and awards for over 40 years. All right, everybody, join me in welcoming Coach Brent West from Cisco to the show. Coach, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Awesome. So, as much as I really would love to talk about the Lobos, we're going to talk about you only.
This will be short and sweet then.
Now let's jump back to when you first were introduced to the game of football, when you discovered, hey, this is kind of a cool thing.
Well, I grew up in De Leon, and my dad was the head coach there, longtime head coach, spent 33 years of his career there, and I figured out about the time I was in high school that this is what I wanted to do, and I just saw the great things that he was able to accomplish, but more than anything, what he was able to do with kids and bring a source of discipline to them, and I figured out that is what I wanted to do. I love the sport and the X's and O's that comes with it, and there's lots of scheming that goes on, and I knew from that point on I was going to follow in his footsteps.
Nice. Well, speaking of his footsteps, I did a little research. There are 27 Coach Wests that have coached in Texas high school football. How many of them are related to you?
Quite a few, actually, and then there's some that are not. I get asked that all the time, but Fred West was my dad's uncle. He was a longtime coach in Comanche, Texas, and in Clyde, and we used to have to play each other. So that was always a neat rival game, watching the two brothers getting after it. Nice.
So let's go back to playing days, college days, and when you discovered there that, I'm actually going to study to be a coach.
Well, I was very fortunate on who I got to kind of play under. I was not a great football player. I went on to I started at Tarleton for a few years, and then the great late Bill Anderson recruited me over to Payne University. And what a great guy to learn football from. I wouldn't say I was a great player. I was a participant for Bill, but more than anything, I learned football, and he was a great one, of course. Most people in Texas remember Bill and the many things that he brought to the game. So I was very lucky there, and spent 3 years with him at Howard Payne, and then eventually made the move over to Hico. Again, very fortunate for me, I got to work under Wade Williams. And Wade Williams is now the head coach at Wellington, won a state championship not too many years ago, brought the wing tee to my brain. I knew nothing about it at the time, and what a great offense to have to learn when you're kind of new at this. Mm-hmm. So, again, just great people that I had the opportunity to learn football from. I spent 7 years in Hico before I made the move to Cisco, where I'm here today.
All right, so that's all the stops you've had, right?
Yes, sir, that is it.
Nice. And it's pretty rare, I guess, for a coach to stay as long as you have without winning, and that's because you have been winning. Cisco has been just a tremendous team ever since you got there.
Well, I wouldn't say ever since. The first few years that I spent in Cisco, and the first one was under Eddie Gill. I was his offensive coordinator. We only won one game that year. Mm-hmm. And Eddie moved on to White Wright, and I took over that next year as the head coach, and we went 2-8. And I'm honestly one of the most miserable things I've ever had to witness. I honestly wanted out of coaching. I didn't think the hard work was going to pay off. I started to doubt myself and the work that we were putting into the program. And I hadn't told the Cisco people this until years later. I actually applied for game warden school and tried to get out of coaching. And that was just what I thought I needed to do. I just didn't feel like I was very good at it at the time. I didn't get into the academy, to make a long story short, that particular year. And luckily, we went on and won 15 games that year. We lost the state championship to Rosebud Lot in 2002. And still to this day, we have the biggest turnaround in Texas high school football history from 2-8 to 15-1. So I was very blessed that I didn't get into that academy, but I certainly thought that that's what I needed to do. And I'm glad that things worked out the way they did.
Yeah, I can guarantee the people of Cisco are thankful. You mentioned Coach Eddie Gill. He actually was on the show earlier in the season, so lots of connections here. But talk about the coaches that were influential in your career and maybe some of the things you learned from them.
Sure. My dad's going to be the most influential, just because I spent the night under his roof and worked under him, and it's just a guy that, and I'm realizing this more as I get older than when I was a kid under his roof, but he had opportunities to leave for greener pastures and to make more money at a bigger, job somewhere, and just, I think what I respect most about him is that he stayed. And part of the reason he stayed for me and my sister, who did not want to move. But he was born and raised in DeLeon, and he spent 33 years at that one location. And that is the only place he has ever coached was DeLeon. And I just, as I get older, I realize how hard that must have been, that I didn't realize it at the time, to be able to sit there through some of those tough years, knowing that you're probably about to have to coach a couple of teams that's not going to win many games. And he was willing to stick that out anyway and do what he felt was right for the community of DeLeon. And even if he took it on the chin, he was going to coach the bad years and hoping for good ones to come. And that's what he did his entire career. And that's what, I'm most proud of and why I put him at the top, obviously.
Nice. Any other coaches you want to pull out and mention?
Well, I mentioned Bill Anderson. Bill has brought to me, he brought passing game probably even more so than Hal Watson and Hal Mummy and Tony Franklin. He brought passing game to football, and I was very fortunate to see some of that. And I wouldn't say we are a great passing team here. We like to run the football, but he certainly brought an aspect to the game that I appreciate. And was certainly lucky to learn for him. But Wade Williams too, Wade Williams, and I never realized how great a coach he was at the time until he moved on and began to win many, many games at Wellington High School. I've just been lucky. I've been real lucky to be able to learn from some of the best in Texas high school football.
Nice. And then also, I guess, talk a little bit about the brotherhood that is football. Maybe not the coaches you worked for, but the coaches you know from conventions and things like that.
Sure. Yeah. I've spent some time on the board and met some great coaches, and just hearing some of their stories and some of the ways that they've been influential to boys that need football more than ever right now. And we as coaches are needed more in this day and time than ever before. We're having to sit here and fill a role, and many times as the father figure in a child's life, we're bringing discipline. We're giving them a way to disconnect from that cell phone and that internet and Fortnite. You can't carry a football holding that cell phone. And so, you hear all these stories and you just feel good about what you're doing as a coach when you hear others talk about it out in Texas, and just fortunate to be a part of the profession. Definitely.
Now, you had mentioned, some situations that affect these young athletes. A lot of people believe that issues like single-parent households and drugs and stuff like that only affect the inner-city schools, and that if you're in the country, you've got it made. You've got everything. If you could kind of clear that misperception up.
Yeah, we have the same issues that the cities have here in our small communities as well. Now, Cisco is a great community, and I've stayed here. But we have kids that suffer some of the same issues that the folks in the city are going through. We have a lot of kids from whatever circumstances happen that don't have fathers in their household, or they're being raised by a grandparent, which is very difficult. And we see that all the time. And the drugs, it's not a big problem in Cisco, but it's a big problem in Texas. Parents that have a huge drug addiction and just have a hard time raising their kids. And, that's where we have to kind of come in, I feel like. It's more important than winning football games is to fill a little void in their life and to bring something to them. And somehow those boys, and for that matter girls, are going to have to find a way to make it in this life, and being able to come to the athletic period, show up on time just as if it was a job, work hard for 45 minutes, and then turn them loose, I think is important for them. And it's, the days of our boys going out and working on a farm and hauling 1,000 bales of hay on the weekend are just simply over. That athletics has to kind of fill that void where at least they're doing something very tough mentally and physically for a short period of time. Is better than nothing at all, and I think we're just needed more than ever, and we do have some of those same issues that cities are going through.
Amen. You also talked about your father staying put, you yourself staying put. If you could talk about the benefit to a program and to those athletes of a coach staying in the same job.
Well, I have stayed here, and one reason I have stayed here is the community of Cisco has bought in, and it's right now an easy place to coach. Starting over somewhere would definitely be difficult, but probably another reason that my dad and I both have stayed settled, not just the community, is that we were able to keep our assistant coaches in our programs. So I've had coaches here with me. The bulk of my coaches have been with me over a dozen years. So there's just not a whole lot of things that we have to do extra to communicate. I'm not coaching coaches. My dad didn't either. Those guys have been here long enough that they know what's about to happen the next day and what's happening in our program, and it's just a smooth running operation. We don't have the turnover that some of the other programs have, and I feel like that's a benefit. We're not reteaching an offense or a defense or an off-season program and for that matter, in any sport, because we've been able to hold on to our assistant coaches. And part of that is administration, and a large part of it is the community of Cisco is a great place to live.
Now, you say the community's bought in, your coaches are bought in, they stick with the program, but how does that develop other than just winning? Obviously, winning helps a lot, but what do you do? How do you build that environment?
For whatever reason, and I don't know why, but the kids just, you know, when they roll into the seventh grade year, they want to be Lobos. They want to do they want to fill those shoes that some of the teams ahead of them have done, playing or winning state championships. And they just want to bust their tail for their community, and they want to find a way to be, you know, the Lobos of old, the big damn Lobos. And it's just been pretty easy for me. I've not had to really work on that part of the program. Our kids show up every day, they bust their tail to try to become better athletes and really better members of the community, and they want to do that for the community of Cisco, and I think that's special. And I really don't know that that's anything that I've done. It's that the bulk of them have great parents, and, you know, it's just kind of runs itself. The program at this point in my life is kind of running itself.
Nice. So aside from wins, state trophies, gold balls, things like that, what would you say are the most important things about coaching?
Yeah, you know, I've talked a little about what I thought was important earlier in this segment, just the need for us as father figures for a lot of these kids. I think it's important that they are prepared for life, and I'm not too sure we're doing as good a job of that in this new society that we did when I was probably growing up. Making kids show up on time and working hard, I think, is just critical. You know, the military comes every year, and they sit down with us and talk about some of the kids that have been in the military, and they always come in and say, "Coach, we don't ever have to worry about your kids in the military. They do a great job. They're yes sir, no sir. They bust their tail. These kids are already ready for the military, and we want more of them. We want to come recruit your kids." And I think you see that in all good programs. The military wants to come take those kids from your football programs that have already seen a dose of discipline. They've already been made to get up even when they don't feel very well, show up to school, pass all their grades, be respectful to their teachers, and go on. And I think there's a lot of kids that miss out on that aren't in athletics. And I think that is one of the most important things about what we do as coaches.
Nice. So you're talking to a person, a parent from another state, who, you know, maybe their head coach is a tire salesman or the insurance salesman, and he asks you, "Hey, what is the deal with Texas high school football? Why are y'all so football crazy?" How do you answer that?
You know, I know very little about the other state situations. I've heard a little bit about how Texas does it compared to the other states when I served on the board. And I think what is important is what you just said. It's a profession. They're not. Their full-time job is coaching, and it is maybe teaching a few classes in the classroom, but it is trying to win football games. And I felt like Texas does that the best. And it is a profession. Right now, Texas still requires for their coaches to have a 4-year degree, and they must have a bachelor's degree to coach. And I think that's important. And I think some of the other states have kind of given in to, hey, you want to be a coach, just come sign up. And I think we've done a very good job of keeping it a profession. We have a regional meeting in Abilene on Saturday where we talk about that every year. Make sure we are professionals. And obviously there's thousands of us, and there's going to be some of us that don't act like professionals, and we're going to weed those people out of the profession the best we can. But I think that's probably the biggest difference. Is I think states tend to just hire whoever wants to coach, and you don't have to have that degree. And I like the way Texas does it, and I think that's what's been great. The Texas High School Coaches Association, by the way, has done a great job of making that work.
Amen, amen. Now, you don't have a lot of turnover in assistant coaches, but occasionally you do have to hire somebody. When you're doing that, what do you look for in a new coach?
I've got something. You're going to laugh at this. The first thing I'm going to ask them is, "Hey, do you know how to change your own oil?" And that sounds really silly. Can you change your own oil? And if you can, you might get hired. I had a guy come up to me. This has been years ago, but I'll never forget it. That said, "Hey, Coach West, my daddy said that coaches are so dumb they can't change their own oil." And ever since then, that has stuck with me, and that's usually the first question I ask in an interview situation. "Hey, buddy, can you change your own oil?" Because my daddy said. Right. Anyway, that's a little bit silly, but that is something that I certainly ask. And if they can't change their own oil, I'm certainly still going to look at them as a possibility of hiring them. I've been very lucky on that. I hadn't had to sit down with too many people over the years and interview, and usually there's a lot of coaches that would like to come be a part of this. So it's pretty easy to find a good one to take the job. You don't have to really go look, is what I'm getting at. They fall into place. And I haven't hired a boys coach in 6 years. Wow. So it's something that we very rarely have to deal with. And I usually know one in a surrounding community or one that I've known over just my many years of coaching that I want to fill that void with when I lose a coach. So sometimes I don't even open that up, and I go out and find who I want. Nice.
So next time one comes open, let me know. I will come and change my oil in front of you.
Good. Yes, sir. We will do that.
Nice. So moving forward, what goals do you have? What's your coaching bucket list?
You know, this sounds strange. I'm not very good at setting goals. Reality is, most coaches and athletes can't reach them. What's most coaches going to say? Well, I want to play for a state championship. Well, most don't get that opportunity. They can still be great coaches. They just didn't work out. I don't really. My goal is just to take on the day-to-day challenges that come to the office and to try to make life better for kids. I am not interested in moving to a higher level, just same as my dad. So it's not a goal of mine to be a 6A coach or a college coach. I just think I'm needed in the small town of Cisco, and I try to do my part here, and I feel like that's a great accomplishment. So that I really not real good at answering that question because I don't really have a large goal there that I really want to accomplish. I want to accomplish everything that hits the desk on Monday morning and try to make life a little easier for our athletes and our coaches.
I love it. So if you're already living the dream, why set goals, right?
I guess you're right. Yes, sir.
All right. Coach Brent West, I want to thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your story with me.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Once again, I want to thank Coach Brent West for sitting down with me, sharing a little bit of his philosophies, his insight, and I want to thank you guys for tuning in. And please support these sponsors because they are the reason we are able to bring this to you each and every week. Until next time, I'm Chris Daly, and we'll see you at the game.
This show is brought to you by the book, All I Need to Know I Learned from My Texas High School Football Coach. A handbook of wisdom for parents, young people, and yes, even coaches. Head over to www.learnedfromcoach.com and order your copy to support sharing the stories of these great coaches and leaders. That's learnedfromcoach.com.
LoneStarGridiron.com. Access the complete history of Texas high school football, over 100 years of information, win-loss records, coaching histories, individual stats, records, and more. Lone Star Gridiron, the authority on Texas high school football.